April 15th, 1944, Baltimore, Maryland. Apartment at 1847 Eastern Avenue. Vera Hutchins sits at her Singer sewing machine and realizes she's making a dress for a dead woman. Not literally. The order came 3 days ago, fabric delivered by Porter, same as always, along with a slip of paper listing measurements. But the numbers don't match any living figure. Bust, 34 inches. Waist, 23 inches. Hips, 35 inches. Vera's been sewing from home for 4 years, has seen hundreds of women's bodies translated into numbers, and these proportions are impossible. Either the person is severely ill, or the measurements were taken from a mannequin, or from a corpse. She sets down her scissors and looks at the stack of orders from the past 3 months. All from Porter. All identical. Summer dresses, skirts, blouses, nothing for winter, nothing warm. Everything sized for girls aged 18 to 25, judging by the measurements. All the sizes perfect, nearly identical, as if taken from the same woman with slight variations for plausibility. Vera is 24 years old. She lives alone in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor of a brick walk-up in Highlandtown. Her parents died in a factory fire in Sparrows Point in 1938 when she was 18. The apartment stayed in her name. She got her sewing education at the Baltimore Vocational School, worked a year at the Kahn Tailoring Company on Pratt Street, then went independent. Pays less, but she doesn't have to see people. The apartment still carries traces of her parents. Her mother's china cabinet stands in the dining room, filled with plates they never used for special occasions that never came. Her father's reading chair sits by the window, the leather cracked and fading. Vera keeps these things not out of sentiment, but because selling them would require talking to strangers, negotiating prices, explaining why a young woman lives alone in a 2-bedroom apartment meant for a family. She prefers the silence, prefers the steady rhythm of the sewing machine, the clean logic of patterns and measurements, the satisfaction of transforming flat fabric into 3-dimensional form. Cloth doesn't ask questions, doesn't judge, doesn't expect her to smile or make conversation or pretend that losing both parents before age 19 is something a person simply gets over. Porter Blackwell entered her life in January 1940. He was 43 then, a short, stocky man with yellowed teeth and the smell of aqua velva. Said he represented wealthy clients who needed a seamstress working fast and without unnecessary questions. Brought the first order, a silk dress, burgundy, size 8. Measurements on paper. Payment up front, $35. That was more than Vera earned in a month at Kahn's. She remembers that first meeting clearly. It was snowing, thick, wet flakes that turned to slush on the sidewalks. Porter had climbed the stairs heavily, breathing hard, knocked on her door just after noon. She'd looked through the peephole first, always did, always would. Saw a middle-aged man in a wool coat and fedora, nothing threatening about him. "Miss Hutchins?" he'd said when she opened the door. Quote 1, quote 2. Vera had answered. Quote 3, quote 4. Porter had smiled, showing those yellow teeth. Quote 5. Vera had hesitated. Something about it felt off, even then. But $35 was $35, and the rent was due, and she'd learned young that the world doesn't care about your discomfort when bills need paying. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 6, underscore, underscore, she'd said. Porter had handed her a slip of paper. The numbers were written in neat block letters. Bust 34, waist 24, hips 35, height 5 feet 6 inches. Fabric? I'll provide everything. You just sew. When do you need it? Week from today. $40, Vera had said. Not because she thought she could get it, but because she wanted to see if he'd walk away. Porter had reached into his coat, pulled out a worn leather wallet, counted out $40 in 5s and 1s, laid them on her kitchen table. Fair enough. I'll bring the fabric tomorrow. You'll do, he'd said. I'll be back to 5 feet 7 inches. These aren't 18 different women. These are 3, maybe 4 body types repeating with small variations. More than that, the orders follow a pattern, a flurry of activity, 5 or 6 orders over 2 weeks, then silence for a month. Then another flurry, as if the women appear and disappear in cycles, as if they're being replaced. Vera closes the ledger. Her heart pounds in her throat. She understands that for 4 years she's been part of something she wasn't supposed to know about. The question is, what does she do now? She could go to the police. But with what? Measurements on paper? A suspicion that something's wrong? She has no proof, no names, no evidence of any crime. Just numbers in a ledger and a growing certainty that those numbers represent women who no longer exist. She could confront Porter, demand answers. But the warning in his voice last time she asked questions was clear. Don't push. She lives alone, has no family. No one would notice if she disappeared too, except maybe the landlord when the rent came due. She could walk away, refuse the next order, tell Porter she's closing her business, move to another city, start over. But that would mean abandoning whoever's being hurt right now, whoever sent those measurements 3 days ago, whoever's waiting for a dress that might be the last thing they ever wear. Vera sits at the window until the light fades and the street lights flicker on. Then she makes a decision. She doesn't know yet what she's going to do, but she knows she can't do nothing. She'll start by finding out if anyone's looking for these women, if families are searching, if the police know something she doesn't. She'll go to the library tomorrow, search newspaper archives, look for missing persons reports, and then, depending on what she finds, she'll decide. Porter comes for the finished dress on the evening of April 17th. Knocks 3 times, their signal. Vera opens the door, lets him into the narrow hallway. He smells of Lucky Strikes and damp wool, tracking water from the rain that's been falling since morning. Finished? He asks without greeting. Vera silently hands him the wrapped package. Porter unfolds the dress, checks the seams, holds it up to the light from the hallway bulb. His thick fingers move over the fabric with surprising delicacy, testing the stitches, examining the hem. He nods. Excellent work, as always. He reaches into his overcoat's inner pocket, pulls out an envelope. $35, and here's the next order. Nearly identical to the last order. Nearly identical to dozens before it. She says quietly. He raises his eyes. His expression doesn't change, but something in the air grows heavier. The hallway suddenly feels smaller, darker. Vera's aware of how isolated she is. Second-floor apartment, neighbors at work, no one to hear if she screamed. Quote, 22, he answers calmly. Quote, 23. Quote, 24. Vera continues, trying to keep her voice steady. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 25, underscore, underscore. Porter folds the dress back into the package, slowly, carefully. His movements are deliberate, controlled. When he speaks, his voice is low. Quote, 26, he says quietly. Quote, 27. Quote, 28. Quote, 29. The word cuts like a knife. Quote, 30. He tucks the package under his arm. Quote, 31. Quote, he walks to the door, opens it, turns back. Rain gusts into the hallway, carrying the smell of wet pavement and coal smoke. Quote, 32. Quote, the door closes. Vera stands in the hallway, gripping the measurement slip so hard the paper crumples. She understands she's just received a warning. More than that, a threat. Porter knows where she lives, knows she's alone, knows she's vulnerable, and he's just told her, in language barely coded at all, that asking questions could get her killed. Vera locks both deadbolts, slides the chain, goes to the kitchen. Her hands shake as she lights the stove, puts the kettle on for tea. She sits at the kitchen table, staring at the crumpled measurement slip, and realizes she's more frightened now than she's been since the night the police came to tell her about the fire. That night, she doesn't sleep, lies on her sofa, stares at the ceiling, listens to the radiator hiss and clank. Every sound from the hallway makes her tense. Footsteps on the stairs, voices from other apartments, the building settling. One thought circles endlessly. If these women aren't clients, then who are they? And what happens to them after Porter delivers their new clothes? She thinks about the patterns she noticed, the cycles, orders in clusters, then silence, women appearing and disappearing from the measurements like ghosts. She thinks about the lack of winter clothing, everything sized for warm weather, as if the women won't live to see another winter. And she thinks about Porter's warning. Understanding gets people hurt. But not understanding means being complicit, means continuing to sew clothes for women who might be dying in them, means profiting from whatever horror is happening behind those measurements. By the time gray dawn light seeps through the curtains, Vera's made her decision. Porter's threat was real, but so is her responsibility. She's been part of this for 4 years, knowingly or not. That makes her accountable. That means she has to act. Morning of April 18th, Vera walks to the Enoch Pratt Free Library on Cathedral Street. The rain has stopped, but the sky remains low and gray, pregnant with more weather. She passes women queuing outside the butcher shop, ration books in hand. Passes a newsboy hawking papers with headlines about the war in Italy. Passes 2 sailors on leave, laughing and smoking outside a diner. The library is a massive stone building, columns flanking the entrance like sentries. Inside, it smells of old paper and floor polish. The reading room is nearly empty. A few elderly men at the newspapers, a young mother with 2 children at the children's section. Vera approaches the reference desk. The librarian is an older woman in wire-rimmed glasses, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Vera says. The librarian's eyebrows rise slightly, but she doesn't question. Leads Vera to a small room lined with bound volumes of newspapers, pulls down several heavy books. __quote _37 __quote _38 __. The librarian leaves. Vera sits at the scarred wooden table, opens the first volume, begins reading. She searches for reports of missing young women. American newspapers cover such things more than Soviet papers would. Stories about missing persons, police investigations, family appeals. But they're often brief, buried in the back pages between advertisements for war bonds and announcements of scrap metal drives. She reads methodically, scanning page after page. Her eyes begin to ache from the small print, but she continues. Reads through accounts of factory accidents, traffic collisions, minor crimes. Reads through the rhythm of wartime life. Women taking jobs in shipyards and aircraft plants, victory gardens, air raid drills that never amount to anything because the war is far away, happening to other people in other cities. On the 7th volume, she finds it. March 15th, 1943. Mrs. Dorothy Calhoun, 51, of Glen Burnie reported her daughter Judith Calhoun, 19, missing to Baltimore County Police. The girl was last seen March 8th leaving her shift at Glen L. Martin Aircraft Plant in Middle River. Description: height 5 feet 6 inches, blonde hair, blue eyes. Anyone with information should contact Baltimore County Police Department. Vera copies the text into her notebook. Her hand shakes slightly as she writes. Height 5 feet 6 inches. That matches the measurements she's been working with. The age matches too. 19. Young. Vulnerable. She continues searching. Finds another notice 2 volumes later. __quote _41 __. Brown hair, brown eyes. Miss Kepler was employed at the Western Electric Plant on Point Breeze Road. Her family asks anyone with knowledge of her whereabouts to contact police immediately. Don't search for what doesn't concern you. Final warning. Who is it? My name is Lenore Whitmore. I'm looking for the seamstress Vera Hutchins. I was told she lives here. Who told you? Porter Blackwell. He brought me clothing. Said you made it. Vera's blood goes cold. Porter sent her here? Why? Is this a test? A trap? What do you want? Vera asks, keeping the door closed. I need to talk. Please. Lenore's voice breaks. I don't know where else to go. I don't know who else would understand. Please. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just need help. 5 minutes. Then you leave. Thank you. Thank you so much. Start talking. I'm from Hagerstown. Small town, everybody knows everybody. I wanted something different, something bigger. So I came to Baltimore in August last year. Got a job at Bethlehem Steel Shipyard. They're hiring women now with so many men at war. I took night classes in typing at Strayer Business College. Rented a room in Canton from an old Polish woman who didn't ask questions. She pauses, sips the coffee, grimaces at the heat. In October, I met a man. His name is Harlan Pruitt. He's 48 years old, works as procurement director for the War Production Board. Important man. Government job. Respectable. __quote _57 __. We met at a bond rally downtown. They have them every few weeks, trying to get people to buy bonds for the war effort. Bands playing, speeches, that kind of thing. I went because it was free entertainment. He approached me after the speeches, said I reminded him of his niece who died young. Bought me a Coca-Cola. Walked me to the streetcar. Very polite. Very proper. __quote _58 __. He started showing up places I went. Not following me, or I didn't think so then. Just coincidentally being at the same diner, the same library, the same parts of town. Always friendly, always respectful. Started bringing me flowers. Asked me to dinner. I said yes because he seemed safe, you know? Older, established, not like the boys from the shipyard who only want one thing. She laughs bitterly. After a month, he offered me a room in his house. Said he had extra space, that it would be more comfortable than my rented room, closer to my classes. Said his housekeeper had quit and he needed someone to keep the place tidy in exchange for reduced rent. It seemed like a good deal. The room in Canton was expensive, and the landlady was getting suspicious about me coming home late from classes. You moved in, Vera says. November 1st. House on St. Paul Street. 3 stories, Victorian style, very grand. He showed me to a room on the 2nd floor. Nice room. Clean. Window overlooking the street. Private bathroom. I thought I was lucky. Lenore's hands start to shake. She clasps them together on the table. First 2 weeks were normal. He left for work in the morning, came home in the evening. We'd eat dinner together sometimes. He'd cook or bring food from restaurants. He never made advances, never even touched me inappropriately. I started to think, maybe he really was just a lonely widower who wanted company in his big, empty house. She stops, swallows hard, continues. Then the clothes started arriving. Beautiful dresses, skirts, blouses. He said they were gifts, that he liked seeing me wear nice things, asked me to put them on when he came home from work. I thought it was strange, but harmless. Rich people are eccentric, right? And the clothes were beautiful, better than anything I could afford. Vera knows where this is going, can see it in the tension of Lenore's shoulders, the way she won't quite meet Vera's eyes. In December, he started locking the doors. When he left for work, he'd lock the front door from outside, lock the back door, lock the cellar door. Said there'd been break-ins in the neighborhood, that it was for my safety. I tried to object, said I needed to get to work, to classes. He said I should quit both, said he'd take care of me financially, that I didn't need to work in a dirty shipyard or waste time learning to type, that my job was to keep the house and look pretty for him. Tears start sliding down Lenore's face. She doesn't wipe them away. I said no, said I was leaving. He asked me where I'd go. I said back to my room in Canton. He told me he'd already paid my former landlady to rent it to someone else. Said he'd spoken to my supervisor at the shipyard, told them I quit. Said he'd withdrawn me from my classes. All of it done while I thought I was just staying in his house temporarily. You were trapped, Vera says quietly. Yes. Door locked. Windows on the 3rd floor. He moved me to a different room, smaller, higher up. No telephone in the house. When he traveled for work, I'd be alone for days. He'd leave food, water, everything I needed, but I couldn't leave. He came home every evening. Made me put on the clothes he brought. Sometimes just watched me. Sometimes photographed me. Sometimes wanted more. I learned not to fight. Fighting made it worse. I learned to be still, to go somewhere else in my mind, to wait for it to be over. __quote _69 __. I lived there for 4 months, November through February. I thought I'd die there. Thought eventually I'd do something he didn't like and he'd kill me, or I'd kill myself just to make it stop. But in February, he went to Washington for a week. Conference about war production. He was in a hurry when he left. Forgot to lock the back cellar door. A smile flickers across her face, gone almost immediately. I got out through the coal chute. Filthy, covered in coal dust, but I got out. Ran to the train station. Bought a ticket to Hagerstown with money I'd stolen from his desk. Went home to my parents. Did they go to the police? They wanted to. I begged them not to. Harlan Pruitt has connections. He knows the mayor, knows police commissioners, knows judges. My father's a shop foreman. My mother works in a laundry. Who would believe them over a government official? She reaches into her handbag, pulls out a folded piece of yellow paper. 2 weeks ago, I got this. She hands it to Vera. It's a Western Union telegram, crumpled from being folded and unfolded many times. Locked in house at 1634 St. Paul Street. Stop. Pruitt keeps me prisoner. Stop. Please help. Stop. Estelle Rourke. Stop. Vera reads it twice. The address matches. St. Paul Street. The name is unfamiliar, but the situation isn't. How did she get your address? I kept a diary while I was there. Hid it in my room. Wrote down my parents' address in Hagerstown in case someone found it. Estelle must have found it after I left. Must have managed to convince a delivery man or mailman to send the telegram. Have you been to the police? Yesterday. Went to Central District Station. Told the desk sergeant everything. He listened politely, then said without evidence it's just my word against Mr. Pruitt's. Said a respected government official wouldn't do such things. Said if I had proof, photographs, witnesses, something concrete, he'd look into it. But just a story and a telegram that could be fake? Not enough. __quote _79 __. I remembered Porter mentioning your name once. He delivered a dress to the house, said it was custom made by a seamstress on Eastern Avenue. Very skilled, he said. Very discreet. I looked up seamstresses in the city directory, found your name and address. I thought maybe if you knew something about the clothes, about where they went, about other women. I've been keeping records, she says. 4 years of orders, all from Porter. All similar measurements, similar ages. I think Harlan Pruitt has been doing this for years. I think there have been many women before you. She opens the ledger, turns the pages so Lenore can see. Columns of numbers, dates, descriptions. Order after order after order, stretching back to January 1940. Lenore reads, her face going progressively whiter. Her hands grip the edge of the table. How many? She whispers. 119 orders. If he keeps each woman for a few months, then moves to the next, dozens, maybe more. Where are they? What happened to them? I don't know. Some might have escaped like you. Others. We have to stop him. We have to get Estelle out. We have to make sure he can't do this to anyone else. Vera looks at her, this young woman who barely knows her, who's been through hell and somehow found the strength to come here, to ask for help, to fight back. The police won't help without evidence. __quote _89 __. And we don't have any. Then we get evidence. How? Lenore meets her eyes. I know the house. I know the layout, the locks, where he keeps things. If we could get inside when he's not there, __quote _93 __. That's breaking and entering. That's a crime. So is kidnapping. We need help. We can't do this alone. If we try to break into that house and he catches us, or if we do get in but can't prove anything, it'll be worse than doing nothing. He'll know we're onto him. He'll be more careful, and we'll be in danger. Who would help us? Who would believe us? Vera thinks of Marion Kessler, thinks of Marion's brother, the criminal defense lawyer who takes cases nobody else wants. I know someone, she says. Used to work with me at Kahn's Tailoring. Her brother's a lawyer. He might know what to do, legally, how to build a case, how to get evidence that would hold up. Will he help? I don't know, but it's worth asking. Vera stands, goes to the telephone on the wall, picks up the receiver, dials the number she still remembers from years ago when Marion would call her about shift changes and pattern problems. The phone rings 4 times. Then a woman's voice answers. Feldman residence. Marion? It's Vera Hutchins, from Kahn's. I need to talk to your brother. It's urgent. Vera? Are you all right? I need legal help. Your brother handles criminal cases, doesn't he? Isaac? Yes, but Vera, what's this about? I can't explain on the phone. Can I come see him? Today? It's important. Let me call him at his office. Where are you? Home, 1847 Eastern Avenue. Stay there. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. The line goes dead. Vera hangs up, looks at Lenore. We wait, she says. The telephone rings 8 minutes later. Vera answers. Vera? Marion's voice. Isaac can see you at 5 o'clock today. His office is on Lexington Street, number 412, second floor. Don't be late. He has a dinner engagement at 6:30. Thank you, Marion. Vera, be careful, whatever this is about. Vera hangs up, looks at the kitchen clock. It's 1:15 now, almost 4 hours until the meeting. You should rest, she tells Lenore. You look exhausted. I haven't slept properly in weeks. There's a sofa in the front room. I'll wake you at 4:30. This is serious. If what you're telling me is true, Harlan Pruitt has committed multiple felonies, false imprisonment, sexual assault, possibly worse. But Miss Whitmore is right. Without physical evidence, it's your word against his. And he's got political connections. So we can't do anything? __quote _123 __. I didn't say that. Isaac puts his glasses back on. Maryland law allows for citizen's arrest in cases of felony if the crime is occurring or has just occurred. If we could demonstrate that Miss Rourke is being held against her will right now, we could potentially remove her from the premises and then involve police after the fact. How do we demonstrate that? We'd need a witness, someone who could testify that they saw her being held, that she asked for help, that she's unable to leave on her own. Someone whose testimony would be believed. She sent a telegram. Telegrams can be forged. We need something stronger. Ideally, we need Miss Rourke herself to give a sworn statement in front of witnesses, or we need multiple independent people who can corroborate her captivity. What if we went to the house? What if I knocked on the door, asked to see her? Too dangerous. If Pruitt answers, he'll know you're involved. He could destroy evidence, move her to another location, or hurt both of you. We need a different approach. What approach? Does Porter Blackwell know where Pruitt keeps the women? He must. He delivers the clothes, picks up measurements, handles all the logistics. Then we need to talk to Porter. Get him to testify. He'll never agree, Vera says. He's part of it. He threatened me when I started asking questions. Maybe. Or maybe he's just a middleman who doesn't want to know what's really happening. People like that sometimes talk when they realize the alternative is prison. Isaac stands, walks to the window overlooking Lexington Street. Down below, traffic moves in both directions, people heading home from work, the city winding down toward evening. I have a colleague, he says slowly, still looking out the window. Name is Joseph Brennan. Works in the state's attorney's office. Handles government corruption cases, fraud, abuse of power. Not directly involved in War Production Board oversight, but he knows people who are. If I brought him credible evidence of a crime involving a government official, especially during wartime, he'd be motivated to act. The state's attorney's office wants to look good, wants to show they're tough on crime, especially crime that makes the government look bad. If we can give them a solid case against Pruitt, testimony, documentation, physical evidence, they'll move fast. What counts as credible evidence? Testimony from Porter Blackwell would help. Testimony from another victim willing to come forward would help more. But what would really make the case is proof that Pruitt has been using his government position to facilitate these crimes. Travel records showing he was away from work during the times women disappeared. Requisition forms for supplies that don't match his official duties. Any paper trail connecting his official role to his personal activities. Vera thinks about this. Porter might have records. He's been doing this for years. He must keep track of deliveries, payments, something. If he does, and we can get them, that would be valuable. Here's what I propose. I talk to Porter. I explain the situation, explain what he's facing legally, and see if he'll cooperate. If he agrees to testify, we take his information to the state's attorney's office, and they initiate an official investigation. What if Porter refuses? Lenore asks. Then we'll need to find another way. But my sense is that Porter Blackwell is a small-time courier who got in over his head. If I can make him understand that his only chance to avoid serious prison time is to cooperate, he might take it. How do we find Porter? I only see him when he comes to my apartment. I'll find him, Isaac says. I have sources, investigators I work with. Give me a day or two. He pulls out a business card, hands it to Vera. This is my telephone number. Call me if anything changes. If Porter contacts you, if you feel threatened, if you learn anything new. And both of you, he looks between Vera and Lenore seriously. Be careful. If Pruitt suspects you're investigating him, you could be in real danger. Do you think he can help? I don't know, Vera answers honestly. But he's the best chance we have. You can stay with me until this is resolved. I have a spare bedroom. You don't even know me. You came to my door asking for help. You trusted me with your story. That's enough, thank you. I'll change the sheets, Vera says. Make yourself comfortable. That night they eat a simple dinner, canned soup, bread, margarine. Listen to the radio news. Reports from the Pacific Theater, from Italy, from the Eastern Front where the Soviets are pushing the Germans back. The war feels very far away from Baltimore, from this kitchen table, from the quiet companionship of two women who've become allies against a different kind of enemy. Before bed, Vera goes to her window, looks down at the street, sees nothing suspicious, no one watching. But she pulls the curtains anyway, makes sure both deadbolts are locked. Somewhere in the city, Harlan Pruitt is finishing his evening. Somewhere, Estelle Rourke is locked in a Victorian house, hoping the telegram she sent wasn't her last act of resistance. And somewhere, Porter Blackwell is going about his life, unaware that by tomorrow his choices will be cooperate or face prison. Vera turns off the lights, goes to bed, but doesn't sleep. Listens to the sounds of the building. Lenore's breathing in the next room, Mrs. Kowalski's radio playing softly through the wall, the distant rumble of freight trains at the harbor. and thinks about what comes next. 3 days later, on April 22nd, Vera gets a telephone call just after breakfast. She and Lenore are drinking coffee, reading the morning paper, when the phone rings. Vera? Isaac Feldman. I found Porter Blackwell. He works as a freight dispatcher at the B&O Railroad Yards in Locust Point. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I want you there. Vera's heart starts beating faster. Why me? Because he knows you, has a relationship with you, however transactional. If I show up alone, a lawyer he's never met, he'll shut down, refuse to talk, maybe even run. With you there, he might listen. He might believe this is serious. Do you think he'll cooperate? I think he's scared, and scared people make deals. Isaac pauses. Can you be at the railroad yards tomorrow at 7:45? The main entrance on Macoma Street? I'll be there. Good. And Vera? Don't tell Porter I'm coming. If he knows in advance, he won't show up for work. The next morning, Vera meets Isaac at the entrance to the B&O Railroad Yards. It's barely past dawn, the sky gray and overcast. The air smells of coal smoke, creosote, machine oil. Men in coveralls stream through the gates, lunch pails in hand, heading to their shifts. Locomotives hiss and rumble on distant tracks, freight cars clanking together. Isaac is waiting for her, dressed in a dark suit despite the industrial setting, carrying a leather briefcase. He nods when he sees her. Thank you for coming. Where do we find him? Dispatcher's office is near the freight platform. Building 12. This way. What's this? Isaac closes the door behind them. Mr. Blackwell, my name is Isaac Feldman. I'm an attorney. I'd like to talk to you about your work for Harlan Pruitt. Porter stubs out his cigarette, stands up. His hand moves toward the desk drawer. Vera tenses, wondering if there's a weapon there. But he just grabs his pack of Camels, lights another cigarette with shaking hands. Don't know any Harlan Pruitt. Yes, you do. You've been delivering women's clothing to Miss Hutchins here for 4 years. Clothing ordered by Pruitt for women he keeps prisoner in various locations around Baltimore. You pick up the clothes from Miss Hutchins, deliver them to the women, bring back measurements and worn items. You're an essential part of his operation. Porter sits down heavily. His face has gone pale. You need to leave, both of you. This is my workplace. You can't... Sit down, Mr. Blackwell. You can talk to me here, privately, and maybe walk away from this. Or you can refuse, and I'll go directly to the state's attorney's office with what I know, and by tomorrow, you'll be arrested as an accomplice to kidnapping, sexual assault, and possibly murder. Murder? 23 women over 6 years? Miss Hutchins has records of 119 orders. If each woman stayed with Pruitt for a few months before being replaced, that's approximately 23 women. We've located 14 of them. Some escaped, some came forward after Miss Whitmore went to the police. 9 are unaccounted for. So yes, Mr. Blackwell, possibly murder. I didn't know, he says quietly. I swear to God I didn't know what he was really doing. You had me sewing clothes for kidnapped women for 4 years, Porter. For dead women. You threatened me when I asked questions. Don't tell me you didn't know. I suspected. I tried not to think about it. He paid well, I needed the money, and thinking too hard about where the clothes went or what happened to the women. I told myself it wasn't my business. Well, now it's everyone's business, Isaac says, and you have a choice to make. Right now, before this goes any further. He pulls out a yellow legal pad and a pen. Choice 1. You cooperate. You tell me everything you know about Pruitt's operation. Every address where you delivered clothes, every woman you saw, every suspicious thing you noticed. You testify before a grand jury. You help us build a case. In exchange, the state's attorney will consider a plea deal, reduced charges, probation instead of prison, a chance to salvage what's left of your life. ___, quote __, 194 underscore underscore choice 2. You refuse to cooperate. You walk away from this conversation. And tomorrow, I go to the state's attorney with the evidence I have, which includes Miss Hutchins's testimony about your role as courier, and you get arrested. You go to trial. You get convicted. And you spend the next 10 to 20 years in the Maryland penitentiary as an accomplice to some of the worst crimes imaginable. If I cooperate, what happens to me? That depends on what you can provide. If your testimony is valuable enough, if it helps us convict Pruitt, the state's attorney might offer probation and a fine. You'd have a criminal record, but you'd stay out of prison. And if I don't cooperate, you go to prison. Your daughter, quote 200, Evelyn Blackwell, age 15, currently living with her mother in Dundalk, grows up visiting you behind bars. That's your choice. Porter closes his eyes, sits in silence for a long moment. When he opens them again, something has broken inside him. I have information, he says quietly, not just about the women, about Pruitt's operation, how he finds them, how he keeps them, what he does with them afterward. Afterward? The ones who don't escape, the ones who disappear. I know where some of them are. The room goes very quiet. Even the background noise of the railroad yard seems to fade. Where? Isaac asks. Porter reaches for another cigarette, then stops himself. I'll need immunity, full immunity, and protection. Pruitt has friends. If he finds out I'm talking, I'm dead. I can't promise full immunity. That's the state's attorney's decision. But I can arrange for you to talk to them directly, today, and negotiate terms. As for protection, once you testify before a grand jury, Pruitt will be arrested. He won't have the opportunity to hurt you. Porter thinks about this, then nods slowly. All right, I'll talk. But not here. Too many people. And I need to write things down. It'll take time. My office, Isaac says. 2 o'clock this afternoon. Bring whatever records you have. Addresses, dates, names, everything. One more thing. Is there a woman currently being held at Pruitt's house on Paul Street? Porter hesitates, then nods. Girl named Estelle. Maybe 19, 20 years old. I delivered groceries there last week. Saw her through the kitchen window. She looked at me and mouthed the word, help. I pretended not to see and left. Do you have a key to the house? Pruitt gave me one for deliveries. I'm supposed to bring supplies tomorrow morning while he's at work. Wednesday's his long day. He's usually at the office from 7 in the morning until 6 at night. Isaac and Vera exchange glances. What time are you supposed to deliver? Isaac asks. 9 o'clock. We're coming with you. Porter looks alarmed. If Pruitt finds out I let you into his house. Pruitt is going to be arrested within 48 hours, Isaac says firmly. Your concern now is saving yourself, not protecting him. We're removing Miss Rourke from that house tomorrow morning. You can either help us, or we'll do it without you, and you'll have nothing to bargain with when the state's attorney decides your fate. Porter swallows hard, then nods. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I'll meet you at the corner of St. Paul and Madison. They leave Porter in his office and walk back through the railroad yards. Neither speaks until they're outside the gates, standing on Macoma Street in the gray morning light. Do you believe him? Vera asks. That he didn't know? I think he knew enough. I think he chose not to ask questions because asking would have meant doing something about it, and doing something would have cost him his income. That's not innocence. But it's not the same as what Pruitt did. What did he mean about knowing where the missing women are? We'll find out this afternoon when he comes to my office. But Vera, prepare yourself. What he tells us might be terrible. That afternoon, Porter Blackwell sits in Isaac's office and tells them everything. He brings 7 pages of handwritten notes, addresses, dates, descriptions. 4 years of records kept in a small notebook he carried in his coat pocket. He spreads the pages on Isaac's desk, and Vera sees her own handwriting reflected back. The same orders, the same measurements, but from Porter's perspective, the other side of the operation. Pruitt started small, Porter says. When he first hired me in 1938, it was just deliveries to one apartment. Girl named Charlotte. Young, maybe 18. He'd rent an apartment, install her there, visit a few times a week. I'd bring groceries, pick up laundry, deliver new clothes. Lasted about 3 months. Then she was gone, and he had me clean out the apartment. Gone where? Isaac asks. Porter doesn't meet his eyes. He said she'd left, gone back to her family. But there was blood on the bathroom floor. Not a lot, but enough that I noticed when I was cleaning. I asked him about it. He said she'd cut herself accidentally, nothing serious. I wanted to believe him. Vera feels sick. How many apartments? 5 over the years. He'd rent them under false names, always in working-class neighborhoods where nobody asked questions. Keep a girl there for 2 or 3 months, then move to the next one. The house on St. Paul Street is more recent. He bought it in 1942. It's in a better neighborhood, so he has to be more careful. But it's his now. No landlord to worry about. How does he find the women? Different ways. Some he meets at bond rallies, USO dances, church socials. Young women new to the city, no family nearby, no connections. He poses as a helpful older man, offers them housing or jobs. Others he targets more deliberately, reads the newspapers for stories about girls arriving in Baltimore looking for war work, hangs around the hiring offices for the shipyards and aircraft plants. He looks for the vulnerable ones, the ones nobody would miss right away. And nobody reports them missing? Some do. Families file reports. But Pruitt's careful. He chooses girls from out of state, girls who came to Baltimore alone, girls who might have reason to disappear on purpose. When police investigate, they usually conclude the girl left town, went somewhere else, got into trouble. Missing persons cases are hard to solve, especially during wartime when everyone's moving around. You said you know where some of the missing women are. Explain. 3 of them are buried on Pruitt's property. He has 10 acres outside the city, near Reisterstown. Bought it before the war, said it was an investment. There's nothing there except woods and an old stone foundation from a burned-out farmhouse. He took me there twice, said he needed help clearing brush. I saw fresh-turned earth in 3 places, rectangular patches, about 6 feet long. I didn't ask. He didn't tell me, but I knew. 3 graves. Do you remember when? First one was summer of 1939. Girl named Alice, I think. She was in the second apartment, the one in Fells Point. She disappeared in June, and a week later Pruitt asked me to help with yard work at his country property. The other 2 were 1941 and 1942, I think. Different girls. Same pattern. What about the other missing women? I don't know for certain. Could be more graves I didn't see. Could be they really did leave Baltimore. Could be something else. I only know what I saw. ___quote _245 ___. Mr. Blackwell, what you're describing is accessory to murder. Helping dispose of bodies makes you complicit in homicide. Do you understand that? Porter's face crumples. I was afraid. Pruitt made it clear, directly or indirectly, that if I talked, I'd end up in one of those graves too. He knows people, has connections. I didn't think anyone would believe me. I just kept my head down and did what he told me. That's not a defense, I know, but it's the truth. Isaac stands, walks to his window, looks out at the street below. When he speaks, his voice is measured. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, we remove Estelle Rourke from the St. Paul Street house. You're going to let us in, we're going to document everything we find, and we're going to get her to safety. Then I'm taking you directly to the state's attorney's office, where you're going to repeat everything you just told me in a formal statement. In exchange, I'll argue for the lightest possible sentence. But Mr. Blackwell, you're going to prison. Not for as long as Pruitt, but you're not walking away from this. Porter nods slowly. He looks smaller now, diminished, like a man who's been carrying a terrible weight for years and finally set it down. I understand. The next morning, April 24th, 1944, Vera stands on St. Paul Street with Isaac, Lenore, and Porter. It's raining lightly, a fine mist that beads on their coats and makes the cobblestones slick. The Victorian house looms before them, 3 stories of dark brick with tall windows, wrought iron fencing, a small yard overgrown with weeds. It looks abandoned, but Vera knows better. Isaac has brought 2 police officers, Sergeant Frank Walsh and Officer James Chen from the state's attorney's investigative unit. They wait in an unmarked Ford around the corner, ready to move when signaled. Porter unlocks the front door with trembling hands. The lock clicks. The door swings open on squealing hinges. They enter a dim hallway smelling of mildew, old cooking grease, and something else. The sour smell of fear and despair. The house is silent. Wallpaper peels in strips from the walls. The floor is covered with threadbare carpet, stairs leading up to the second floor, a doorway to the right opening into a parlor filled with shrouded furniture. "Estelle?" Vera calls softly. For a moment, nothing. Then footsteps above, quick and light. A door opens somewhere upstairs. More footsteps coming toward the stairs. A young woman appears on the landing above them. 19 or 20, thin to the point of emaciation, wearing a faded cotton dress that hangs off her frame. Dark hair pulled back, face pale, eyes enormous with hope and fear. She sees Porter and flinches, backing against the wall. Then sees Vera, Isaac, Lenore. "Who are you?" Her voice is hoarse, like she hasn't spoken in days. "My name is Vera Hutchins," Vera says, moving to the bottom of the stairs. "This is Isaac Feldman and Lenore Whitmore. We're here to help you. Lenore sent you the telegram response. I thought nobody was coming. I thought he'd keep me here forever. I thought I'd die here. We need to document everything. Sergeant Walsh, Officer Chen, in here, please." "Where did he find you?" "At the Greyhound station. I'd just arrived from Cumberland. I was looking at a map, trying to figure out how to get to the boarding house I'd arranged. He came up, said he overheard me asking for directions, offered to help. Said he knew a nice boarding house run by a friend of his. We got in his car and he drove me here instead." "Did he hurt you?" "You'll need to testify," he tells her gently. "But not right away. First you rest, recover, get your strength back." Estelle nods, still holding Lenore's hand like a lifeline. "Will he go to prison?" "Yes, I promise you that. He'll go to prison for the rest of his life." Miss Vera Hutchins, 24, whose careful record-keeping helped investigators uncover a years-long pattern of abduction. The state's attorney wants to meet with you next week. They're building the case. Your testimony will be crucial. You can establish the pattern of clothing orders, prove Pruitt was systematically acquiring clothes from multiple women over years. What about the graves? They're sending investigators to the property near Reisterstown tomorrow. Porter's going with them to show them where. If they find what he says they'll find... Isaac trails off. "And Porter?" "He's cooperating fully. State's attorney offered him a deal. 5 years in prison with possibility of parole after 3, in exchange for testimony against Pruitt. He took it." Vera is silent, processing this. "You did the right thing," Isaac says gently. "You saved Estelle. Probably saved future victims too. Pruitt won't hurt anyone else. I should have known earlier. Should have questioned those orders years ago." "You couldn't have known. He was careful. And when you did suspect something, you acted. That's what matters." January 15th, 1940. Burgundy silk dress, size 8. Measurements: bust 34, waist 24, hips 35. March 3, 1940. Navy blue skirt and blouse, size 8. Measurements: bust 34, waist 24, hips 36. April 22, 1940. Yellow cotton dress, size 8. Measurements: bust 33, waist 24, hips 35. The doors were locked from outside. The windows were barred. There was no telephone. I was on the 3rd floor. If I'd tried to escape and failed, he would have killed me. That's not willing, counselor. That's captivity. Estelle testifies on the 8th day. Her voice shakes, but she doesn't break. Tells about being lured from the bus station, about the locked room, about praying every night that someone would find her. 14 other women testify, some in person, some via deposition. They tell their stories quietly, matter-of-factly, as if describing something that happened to someone else. Because in a way it did. The women they were before Pruitt are gone, replaced by women who've survived something unthinkable. Porter testifies under immunity, describes the deliveries, the apartments, the graves. The defense tries to discredit him as a criminal saving himself, but the documentary evidence, his notes, Vera's ledger, Pruitt's own records, supports everything he says. On October 3, 1944, after 2 days of deliberation, the jury returns with a verdict: guilty on all counts. The judge sentences Harlan Pruitt to life in prison without possibility of parole for the murders, plus additional consecutive sentences for the kidnappings and assaults. He'll die in prison, no question. Pruitt shows no emotion when the sentence is read. Just stands there, a gray-haired man in an expensive suit, as if this is happening to someone else. He's transferred to the Maryland Penitentiary the next day, serves 19 years in isolation. Other inmates don't take kindly to men who hurt women. Dies of a heart attack in 1963, 71 years old, unmourned. Porter Blackwell begins serving his 5-year sentence in November 1944. He's a model prisoner, keeps his head down, works in the prison library, causes no trouble. Released on parole in October 1947 after 3 years. Moves to Philadelphia, finds work in a print shop, tries to rebuild his life. Dies of lung cancer in 1952, 51 years old. His daughter Evelyn never fully understands what her father did, only that he went to prison and came out broken. Vera closes her sewing business after the trial. Can't bear to look at fabric anymore. Can't bear the sound of the sewing machine. Sells the singer to a neighbor, donates her supplies to the church charity shop. Gets a job at First National Bank on Charles Street, processing loan applications, working with numbers instead of needles. But in November 1944, Lenore comes to her apartment with a proposition. "I want to start something," she says. "A sewing business, but different from what you had. Different from what Pruitt made us part of. A place where women can work safely, make good wages, have dignity." Vera shakes her head. "I don't sew anymore. Can't." "You don't have to sew. Help me run it. Keep the books, manage the business side. You're good with numbers. I saw that during the trial prep. And you understand what we're trying to build. A place where women who've been hurt can put themselves back together." Vera looks at her, this young woman who survived hell and came out fighting, who wants to create something good from something terrible. Where would this business be? "I found a space on Eastern Avenue, 3 blocks from here. 3 rooms above a bakery. Good natural light, cheap rent. The baker's wife said we could have it for $40 a month. How would we afford machines, fabric, supplies? I've got $200 saved from before. Estelle wants to invest $100. She got a settlement from the state, compensation for what happened. And Isaac knows about a charitable foundation that helps women start businesses. They might loan us the rest." What would we make? Whatever people need. Alterations, wedding dresses, children's clothes, curtains, tablecloths. Honest work at fair prices. Nothing secret, nothing shameful. Everything out in the open. What would we call it? I thought maybe Whitmore and Hutchins, or just the Eastern Avenue workshop. Something simple and honest. Do you ever think about it? About Pruitt? About those years? Sometimes. Less now than I used to. You? All the time. Every day. I dream about that house. The locked door. His footsteps on the stairs. Wake up thinking I'm still there. I'm sorry. Don't be. You saved me. You and Isaac, you got me out. If you hadn't acted, I'd still be there.
Or I'd be dead. We got lucky. Could have gone differently. But it didn't.
They sit in comfortable silence. Outside, evening falls over Baltimore. Streetlights flicker on. Ships' horns sound from the harbor. The city settles into its nighttime rhythms. I got a letter last week, Lenore says, from a woman named Claudia. She was one of the earlier ones from 1941. She read about the workshop in a magazine article. Some reporter did a piece about women-owned businesses. Claudia said she wanted to thank us. Said after the trial she moved to California, started over, got married, had 3 children. She sent pictures. Lenore pulls an envelope from her apron pocket, shows Vera 3 photographs. A woman in her 30s standing with a man and 3 children in front of a suburban house, all smiling at the camera. She said without the trial, without us coming forward, she would have stayed silent forever.
Would have thought what happened to her was her fault, or something she deserved. But seeing other women testify, seeing Pruitt convicted, it gave her permission to stop blaming herself.
Vera looks at the photographs for a long moment, then hands them back. We did good work, she says quietly. We did. They close up the workshop, turn off the lights, lock the door, walk out into the Baltimore night together. The streets are quiet now, the war long over, the city rebuilding itself slowly, brick by brick. Vera goes home to Isaac and the children. Lenore goes home to her quiet house and her books. Tomorrow they'll return to the workshop, to the steady rhythm of sewing and cutting and pressing, to the honest work of making beautiful things. But tonight, they carry the knowledge that they did something that mattered, that they saw evil and didn't look away, that they helped women escape from darkness into light. The Eastern Avenue workshop continues operating until 1973, when Lenore retires at age 50. Vera stays on another year,
Then closes it permanently.
By then, they've employed over 200 women across 3 decades. Some stayed for months, others for years. All found a place where they could work with dignity, where their pasts didn't define them, where they were judged only on the quality of their stitches and the steadiness of their hands. Estelle Rourke works there until 1968. She never fully recovers, never marries, never trusts easily, but she finds purpose in the work. When she leaves, it's to move to New Mexico where her sister lives, to a place where nobody knows her story. She writes to Lenore every Christmas for the rest of her life, letters full of small details about the desert, about her job at a library, about the quiet life she's built. Isaac Feldman becomes a judge in 1961, appointed to the circuit court by the governor. Serves with distinction until his retirement in 1980. He's known as a fair judge, tough on violent crime, but compassionate toward defendants who've made mistakes out of desperation. Dies in 1985 at age 77, leaving behind Vera, their 2 children, and 5 grandchildren. Of the 23 women listed in Pruitt's ledger, 18 are eventually located. 14 testified at trial. 7 others choose not to come forward, wanting only to forget, to move on, to build new lives without revisiting old nightmares. 9 women are never found. 3 were in the graves near Reisterstown. The other 6 remain mysteries, unlocated, presumed deceased, their fates unknown. Their names stay in police files, unresolved cases, questions without answers, families that never got closure. Vera thinks about those 9 sometimes, especially in quiet moments. Wonders if the clothes she made were the last things they wore. wonders if somewhere in Baltimore there are unmarked graves of young women in summer dresses she stitched by hand, women whose only memorial is numbers in her ledger. In 1994, Lenore dies of a stroke at age 71. The funeral is small, a handful of former employees, some neighbors from Canton, Vera and her family. They bury her in Greenmount Cemetery on a gray November day with rain threatening. At the reception afterward, held in Vera's living room in the house she and Isaac bought in Roland Park in 1960, a woman approaches. She's in her 50s, well-dressed, with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Mrs. Feldman? I don't know if you remember me. My name is Margaret. I testified at the Pruitt trial in 1944. I was one of the earlier ones, 1940. He kept me for 3 months before I escaped. I was 19. I remember, you worked at a cannery. That's right, Phillips Cannery in Fairfield." Margaret smiles. "I wanted to tell you something. After the trial, I was ashamed. Felt like everyone in Baltimore knew what happened to me. Like I was marked. I moved to Pittsburgh, changed my name, went from Margaret Sims to Margaret Brennan. Tried to start over." She pauses, looking out the window at the rain beginning to fall. "But it didn't work. I couldn't outrun it. Every time someone asked about my past, I'd have to lie or deflect. It was exhausting. So, eventually, I stopped hiding. Started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping girls who'd been through similar things. Met my husband there, Patrick. He was a counselor. We've been married 45 years now, have 3 sons, 7 grandchildren." She reaches into her purse, pulls out a business card, hands it to Vera. "I run a crisis center now, in Allegheny County. We help women escape from abusive situations, give them resources, legal support, temporary housing. I wanted you to know that what you and Miss Whitmore did back in 1944, it didn't just save us. It showed us we could save ourselves, that we deserve to be saved. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for not looking away. Thank you for doing something when you could have just stayed quiet and kept making money from those orders." After the reception ends, after the guests leave, after her children hug her and drive back to their own homes, Vera sits alone in her living room. She's 74 years old. Isaac is gone, dead 9 years now. Lenore is gone as of this morning. Most of the women from the trial are scattered or dead. She's one of the last ones left who remember. She thinks about that morning in April 1944 when Lenore knocked on her door in a gray coat, frightened and desperate. Thinks about all the decisions that followed. To help instead of turn away, to investigate instead of ignore, to act instead of stay safe. Thinks about the women who came after, the ones who testified, the ones who stayed silent, the ones who rebuilt their lives from ashes and trauma. Thinks about Harlan Pruitt, dead in a prison cell, his name forever synonymous with cruelty. Thinks about Porter Blackwell, who took the coward's path and lived with that knowledge until cancer gave him an escape he probably didn't deserve. And thinks about Lenore, who survived captivity and refused to be defined by it, who built something good from something terrible, who turned pain into purpose. Vera stands, walks to her bedroom, opens the closet. On the top shelf, wrapped in tissue paper and mothballs, is the last dress she ever made for Porter's orders. A simple cotton day dress, pale blue with pearl buttons. Made it in March 1944, before Lenore's knock, before she understood what she was part of. It was supposed to go to Porter for delivery on April 20th. She never gave it to him. Kept it as evidence during the investigation, then couldn't bring herself to destroy it afterward. She takes it down now, unwraps it carefully. The fabric is yellowed with age but still intact, the stitches still perfect. It would fit a woman of 5'5", slender build, young. Somewhere between a size 6 and 8, depending on the cut. It was meant for a ghost, for a woman who would wear it while captive, or wear it while dying, or wear it while disappearing into one of Pruitt's graves. Vera refolds the dress carefully, wraps it back in tissue paper. Tomorrow she'll take it to Goodwill. Let it become what it should have been all along. Just a dress. Nothing more, nothing less.
Let some woman who needs clothes buy it for $2 and wear it without knowing its history.
But tonight, she lets it rest where it is. A reminder of what she was. An unwitting accomplice, however innocent. What she became. A woman who chose action over safety. What she helped others become. Survivors instead of victims. She closes the closet door, turns off the bedroom light, goes to the kitchen to make tea, sits at the table where she's sat for 34 years, in the house where she raised her children, in the city where she witnessed evil and helped stop it, and thinks about the women for whom she once sewed in ignorance, who are now, she hopes, sewing their own lives, on their own terms, in their own way. The ones who lived. The ones who escaped. The ones who testified and rebuilt and survived. The ghosts are gone. Only the living remain. And that, after 50 years, is finally justice enough. She finishes her tea, washes the cup, turns off the kitchen light, goes to bed and sleeps peacefully, knowing that she did what she could with what she knew, when she knew it. The next morning, she wakes to rain pattering against the windows, makes coffee, reads the newspaper, calls her daughter to talk about ordinary things, grandchildren's school plays, plans for Thanksgiving, the weather. Normal life. Ordinary days. The world turning as it always does. Indifferent to old tragedies, to old triumphs, to the quiet victories of women who refuse to be erased. And somewhere in Pittsburgh, Margaret Brennan opens the Women's Crisis Center for another day of helping women escape from darkness. Somewhere in New Mexico, Estelle Rourke shelves books in a library and enjoys the peaceful silence. Somewhere in California, Claudia tends her garden and watches her grandchildren play. And in Baltimore, in a Goodwill store on North Avenue, a pale blue dress with pearl buttons hangs on a rack, waiting for someone to give it a new story.